let's talk about Ilhan Omar's tweet, what she said, if it's anti-Semitic, and what that whole episode signifies.
It was clearly anti-Semitic. There was no question about it. It was even, what should we say, obnoxiously anti-Semitic, even if that's a repetitive term. You'd probably edit that out if you were editing me for the paper. But it's all about the Benjamins with the notes. I mean, I know it comes from a song, someone just enlightened me about that. But still, it was really obnoxious. And I don't put much stock in her apology. I think the problem goes, I just came back from London yesterday where the book was launched this week in the UK. And of course there the question of Jeremy Corbyn comes up over and over again. And I think for people like Jeremy Corbyn and those around him, for people like Representative Omar, for Representative AOC, as I guess she's called here in her hometown, and for others like that, for some progressives, political progressives, their view of the world is refracted through a prism. You know, prisms bend light, if you remember your high school science. And that prism has two facets, ethnicity and class. They look at Jews and they see white people, which is ironic because the guy who came into Pittsburgh and committed the massacre, the murderer, saw Jews ruining the world for white people, but that's, you know, two separate views. They see white people and they see privileged people. So they say, if you're white and you're privileged, there's no way, it's categorically impossible for you to be a victim of prejudice. Therefore, your claims about anti-Semitism must be a shield, a foil for something else. Ha ha, Israel. And then on top of that, certainly someone like Jeremy Corbyn, and I think Representative Omar also, and some of the others, even though they're much younger than Corbyn, they say, you're accusing me of being prejudiced? You're accusing me of being anti-Semitic? That's impossible. You know, Jeremy Corbyn always boasts about his mother having marched at Cable Street, which is the anti-fascist marches. You know, I imbibed liberalism and anti-prejudice with my mother's milk. You know, Representative Omar, I was a victim of prejudice. I was a refugee. It's impossible for me to be prejudiced. So A, it's impossible for me to be prejudiced. B, it's impossible for you to be a victim of prejudice. Something else is going on. And the minute you hear the money thing, you know, warning bells should go off.
So it seems to me that in the Democratic Party, or maybe that's unfair, maybe let's just say on the parts of the left, you tell me which is more accurate. There's a zero tolerance policy when it comes to racism, as we saw in, you know, the reaction to Governor Northam's blackface from the time in medical school. And when he's criticized for that, it's a criticism, everyone agrees, based on morality, based on fighting against bigotry. Today, when Ilhan Omar was criticized by Nancy Pelosi and other leaders in Congress, the reaction from parts of the left was, aha, see? This proves the power that the Jews and the pro-Israel lobby have. What are we meant to do to that?
Well, let me just
respond to that.
I think you're absolutely right for your analysis there, but remember that the same thing happens on the right. When Donald Trump, the candidate, is enthusiastically endorsed by David Duke, and he's asked, you know, what do you do with his endorsement? And he says, well, I don't really know who David Duke is, so I don't want to comment. Of course, even though 5 years earlier he'd condemned David Duke and condemned the Republican Party for making common cause with David Duke. And when he's criticized and criticized for it, and he finally issues a rather tepid condemnation of David Duke, all those people on the far right say, the Jews forced them into it. So I had a professor in graduate school, Ben Halpern, who used to say the one place the far right and the far left meet is in the hatred of Jews. You know, and we've seen that. We see it in France. We see it in lots of places. So, but I think there is a sense that of not taking anti-Semitism seriously. And if you don't take anti-Semitism seriously, and you see these group of people completely apoplectic as to what's going on here, you say, what's wrong with them? You know, what's their problem? And I happen to think the statement by the Democratic leadership was very strong.
But don't you think they should remove her from the Foreign Affairs Committee, as they remove Steve King from his positions?
I think that would not be a incorrect move, to put it that way. I think it would be the right thing to do. I think she unless you want to say she's, everybody's going to be watching everything she does so closely that, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So, it was a stunning moment.